Welcome, everybody. I'm Suzanne Kalanian. I am representing the new leadership community in Graz. I'm part of the organizational team together with René Pachanek, Carola Sakotnik, and also Nico Riedman, who hosts our fantastic book club. I think there's still one going on tomorrow. Great. So, new leadership is actually, we've been doing this for 4 years now. René and I started this community in 2020 during the pandemic, and we are still going strong, organizing events all about new work and new leadership. We offer talks, workshops, panels, and this is actually our last event before summer break. We will be back in September. So we are on Meetup as well. So if you're interested in this topic, just look us up and see what's coming in the fall. We have some exciting events coming. And yeah, thank you very much for WireCube for hosting this event. And I look forward to this talk. Hello, everybody. There too. I keep forgetting. Hi. Enjoy the talk.
All right. So with that, over to you.
Yeah, before that, a brief segment about our sponsor today. No. Thanks everybody for coming. Very glad to have everybody show up at our new office here. Maybe some of you have been at our old office. The paint here is almost still not dry. No, we moved in 3 months ago. For those of us who don't know us, it's actually 2 companies under one roof here. With WireCube, we do in general anything that's related to hard problems in software, and with Supreme, we build the world-leading self-checkout solutions. What does that mean? It's scan and go on your smartphone, and since last year also self-checkout hardware. The picture that you can see here is at RD in the Netherlands. It's one of their reference stores where they test the new store layout with 6 of our self-checkout registers. So it's exciting. We started in 2015. When I went to school, RD didn't even have barcode scanners, so it's quite an honor to be there. The one thing that I want to tell you about today is just to highlight our new business unit, WireCube Electronics. So everything we will learn from developing our own hardware with our spin-off Supreme, we are now putting that step up again in our group, so to speak, and offer that as general engineering services and make our machine that builds the machine also even more capable and have the perfect ground for the next ideas that come along. So should you know anybody who needs electronic design, simulation testing, firmware development, or in fact whole product development, where we can not only do the mechanical design, industrial design, but also offer the full cloud software stack along with the hardware. Yeah, thanks for coming. And with that out of the way, I will hand over to our speaker today.
Let's see if that works. Yep. Remote, everyone can hear me? Thumbs up. Perfect. Good. Then to today's talk. I, on purpose, chose a title that may be a bit provocative for some people. I also expect, or I'm okay with, if someone during the talk throws an agile book at me and say, please educate yourself. That's fine. I expected it. I hope to be fast enough to dodge most of the books. But let's see what's actually behind this title and why I choose it. So first, I want to start. Of course, you should know who I am and why I'm talking about that and what is my background. So I'm currently working at Netconomy. That's a company that's based in Graz, but we are over Europe, so in Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and so on. And what is important about that is we are an IT service provider. So what that means is that we, with our development teams and our consultants and so on, we create and build solutions for our customers. So we don't have our internal product development. Everything we do is the idea and the vision of one of our customers. That is important also for later, and you will see why. The role as a customer director is on a strategic leadership level, meaning that I have many clients, and we have many teams that work for those clients. And of course, I need to work with all of them on some level. Before that, I had different roles like product owner and also other engineering roles, also in the, let's say, traditional project management. And that is basically my background. But I was always interested in the agile way of working and agile software development. So in with my previous company, I managed a few IT projects. Some were tiny software projects, some were like more hardware-related projects. And I thought, okay, with my project management skills from there, equipped also with everything I read about Scrum and Agile in some books and what I learned at university, I'm basically perfectly equipped for a new challenge and for a new job. And I joined Netconomy as a product owner. That's me. At Netconomy, my very first project on my very first day I got introduced was an enterprise software development project. I just got my notebook. Someone grabbed me and said, please go to that meeting room. You have a meeting with the customer. I didn't know the customer. I didn't know what I was actually doing. And the customer in that meeting asked me why we have a delay. I was like, I'm coming back to you. I just need a moment to talk to a few people. And then I found out that we have a project with fixed budget, fixed timeline, and fixed scope. That was perfect. So what could go wrong? Yeah, you start like this and you have absolutely zero experience in the enterprise software development. So my first couple of weeks looked basically like this. I was in a constant firefighting mode, and I thought, okay, everything that I thought I learned, which is so easy from the agile world, like you can adapt, you embrace change, everything is collaborating, everyone takes ownership. I didn't see any of that. I was just talking with the client and explaining him things that I had absolutely no clue about. Luckily, my team was great. My team was really amazing and helped me through all of that. So we supported each other, we helped each other. Everyone really took ownership and responsibility. And back then, that was really agile by the book. So my team really took everything that I learned at university, how it should be, how a team should behave in the perfect world. They all did exactly that. And this is also how we managed this very challenging first project. And also I moved with this team to additional projects, and also there I saw the same spirit. Of course, I learned a lot by then. It was a bit better to communicate with the customer. We still had a contract that was a bit difficult, but we managed it. And yeah, okay. Let's see, can I change? Yes. Okay. So it was time for a new chapter at the same company. I got promoted, the company grew bigger, our projects became more complex and bigger, and I was excited. I had more teams now. I was one level above the product owner, so I had multiple teams, multiple product owners, and I was like, okay, let's rock it. The new projects should be much better. We all have much more experience. Let's do that. The reality looked a bit like this. I was, again, threatened by so many things that shouldn't happen. Everything that worked before suddenly stopped working. The ownership in the teams was gone. There was no proactive communication. No one raised their hand and said, hey, there might be an issue. No one tried to figure out if something is wrong. No one made decisions in the team. And we kind of had an attitude like, not my job. And I was like, what happened? I mean, we're still in the same company. We're still working for clients. It's still just software. And suddenly everything is completely different. And I was like, okay, something changed. Something fundamentally changed, and I need to figure out why. So I took a lot of time. I attended a lot of conferences, talked with colleagues, talked with other people, and tried to figure out what happened. And it turns out the main things that happened is, first, we grew tremendously as a company. From my very first project to when everything goes down, we almost doubled our company size. And with that, if you grow that fast, you suddenly will not have just high performers and A-team players in your team. You will also have the others, the one that wants to work 9 to 5 and don't care about what they're actually doing. They want to code and then go home. If it works or not, who cares? Second, also the environment got much more complex. I mean, many of you probably know software platforms you built maybe 10, 15 years ago in terms of complexity compared to what happens today. And now even with machine learning and AI, that's fundamentally different. So back then, we were like hiring full stack developers because it was possible to have that. In the enterprise environment that we are now, it's not possible to get someone who knows everything in every detail on a level where you can really say, okay, that's an expert. So many things changed. And I saw, okay, everything that I thought is true from Agile, where I say, okay, we can just work like that, seemed to be a bit of an Agile mirage. It just didn't work out. And that is a big topic why I think we need to talk about that today. In many, many Agile books and many, many conferences I attended, you get a picture of a perfect world. Like people are motivated, people take ownership. In most of the cases, the view is also that you built your own project, a product internally, and there is like no customer outside, and you can basically decide. You get the budget maybe at the beginning of the year, and you decide what goes into the product and what not. And when you look at some statistics, if we see that only 21% of the employees are really engaged at work, and you have 500 employees, you already know that you will have many, many people who don't care, and you need to deal with that. In addition, we also see that still many projects fail in the IT industry. Of course, this number is much worse when we work with waterfall. So we definitely see that there is an improvement. Agile is definitely better than working with waterfall in those scenarios, but there is still room for improvement. And we can define now, okay, the 35%, like what do you consider a successful project or not? The numbers don't matter. The main point here is not everyone will be engaged and work, that not every IT project is successful. That's the main takeaway from this one. And with that intro, that brings me to the agenda of today. So the first two topics we covered. The next one I want to cover is having a bit of a deeper look into the life of a service provider. Many things are most likely also true if you have your own product development company, but the focus is really on a software provider where you work for a client and the client is paying you. And your business model most likely requires that you get some money. Afterwards, we discuss a bit from my personal experience how I and we as a company adapted. We are still not where we want to be, but what we see, what is absolutely needed to deal with those changes and challenges. Then I have two case studies, which is two complex projects that we worked on with some challenges and what we did to overcome them. And then some closing words. So with that, let's start with the service provider reality check. The first and maybe very obvious one is that you have kind of a conflict when it comes to priorities and also what each scenario wants. So the team has some needs and some beliefs how things should be. We have some agile principles that prove to be very good and work in very, very other scenarios. And we have the client. And the client is something we can hardly change. We can try to coach and to educate, but that only works to some extent. There will always be a limit, even if he doesn't want to change, or he even has some boundaries from stock market or wherever where he cannot change, even if he would like to. And that, of course, brings us to some challenges. There will always be tension between these groups, especially between the team and the client. By now, you probably realized that there will be a lot of cat content, by the way. So what do we have? If we work together with a client, we have different culture, most likely. We have different priorities. we have different expectations. A famous line from a customer is, I don't know why you need time for fixing bugs, just write software without bugs. And you need to deal with that. So we see here there is a natural tension that is maybe a bit easier if you just work internally with your project, because hopefully your own product owner that develops or helps with your product knows how software development works. The next one, and that was the one where I feared that the books will come, is the myth of the self-organizing team. While I do know that it exists, and it can exist because I experienced it, it doesn't work all the time, and we cannot assume that this is something that will happen all the time, no matter what we do. This is just not something that we can rely on when we start something new, when we go out to a client and we win a project. The next one that happens very fast is the blaming game. We already see that in internal games, in internal teams, when something is not working as expected. It can be very quickly that there is a finger pointing, and then you get in this not very constructive environment where you say, you messed up, and the other person said, but you messed up too. So we just try to find out who messed up more, and then that one is the guilty one. That, of course, will not help us very much. And if we have a client in the game as well, that will always say, well, I am paying the money, whatever I did, I'm for sure not the guilty one, it's always you, then we get an additional spin into that whole topic, which is even more dangerous. Another one is the technical debt. This is a very tricky one. For one reason is, as I mentioned before, the customer says, like, why do we even have technical debt? Like, just write perfect software, then we don't have that issue. While that is not very feasible, we still need to figure out a way how we balance that. And that is also a question how the team can deal with that. Because there are teams, for example, that want to create great software, and that is a good thing. But what if the client says, I just want to be on the market very fast for some marketing reasons or whatever, and I know that I will throw away that product in a month. So I don't care if it's perfect or not. And then on the other side, you have a team and you break the heart of the team if you say, just deliver a fast, shitty solution. That is something you need to deal with. So you need to address that and give some guidance, like what is okay, and maybe explain multiple times why the solution now maybe should look like that. And you need a lot of empathy for both sides, the client and also the team, to work with that. So now those are a few problems area. There are, of course, more, but these are the ones I wanted to focus on to give you, because I think those are especially the ones that are more difficult when you have a client in the game that is outside of your company and not some internal stakeholder. What can we do? The first one is, I think, a heavily discussed topic in the Agile community when it comes to leadership. And I heard basically everything from an Agile team needs micromanagement and command and control to everyone should do whatever they want, like no one is a leader, to everyone is a leader. So we have really all perspectives there. What we do know, or I know from experience, but also thankfully some statistics support me there, is that leadership in general is very important for Agile team. And that is true for both. And with both, I mean internal, but also external leadership. And when you have both, and both is very good, then you can really significantly improve the performance of the team. Now, but what is good leadership, external leadership? And this is maybe also a topic that is a bit controversial because not everyone will agree, but that's totally fine. My first topic is guidance. Many teams at some point when it's very, very hard lack guidance. As long as everything works easy, it's also easy for the team to figure out the way. As long as you have a product owner, let's say, let's go that direction, it's still fine. But what if even the product owner doesn't know because the client is changing his mind every single day? What do you do then? Then you sometimes get into this scenario where the team, including the product owner, they don't really know what to do. And because the client is the one that's paying for you, you also can't just say, I ignore whatever he's saying, let's build whatever. In this case, the team, and that is my personal experience, really benefits from if you get a guidance and a decision from the outside. If there is someone outside of the team who says, I will take responsibility, I will talk to the client now on a different level, maybe on C level, and you as a team go that direction, that's perfectly fine. We take the risk for you. And I have multiple examples where exactly that was needed, and then the team could pick up speed again and really delivered an amazing solution. And it's also a part of the case study later, where I go a bit more into detail for that. In addition, a good leader also needs to be a challenging partner. That, of course, requires that you have certain knowledge about the team dynamics, and also the topic they are working on. Because the team, of course, they have their own view, but sometimes the teams, for example, lack an economic view from the client, which is understandable, because who should give it to them if not some external leader? What if the client we're working for is on the stock market, and the stock market sends some signal, there is some change, everything gets more disruptive into the teams, and the team suddenly doesn't know what to do. And then you come there and tell them, okay, you may be working on the wrong thing, and need to give guidance again and challenge what they're currently doing. And usually the team is very fine with that. Because if you act as a challenging partner that understands the team, and also you know roughly what they're doing, because you will probably never as deep into the technology as the developers itself. But if you have a basic understanding, then they know they either convince you, the team, and say, okay, look, we are still right, this is the right direction, but that's fine. Or you can convince the team, which again, of course, is an increase in performance usually. Next one is the ownership in team. That's really my favorite topic. This is influenced by a lot of things, of course. Yeah, you have influence by culture. It can be a lack of transparency, lack of communication. Yeah, there are many, many reasons that influence that. And the question is real ownership always achievable? And if not, can we just enforce ownership? Can we just tell the team, own it? Unfortunately, we cannot do that. So ownership needs to be something intrinsic. I mean, of course, you can do it, but the result might not be what you expect. And the real ownership is tough to achieve. Some teams have it, some teams can get there, but some teams will lack that for a very long time. And there are many, many reasons why this is not achievable. And when you look at the business model of an IT service provider, you earn money when you sell time to your customers. So if you want to grow, and every customer needs to grow, you need to hire people. When you are a small startup with your own product and you have 30 people and one is the guy that is not motivated, not taking ownership, you can try to coach him, you can send him to an event, and if he still doesn't learn it, you can replace him. That works on that scale, that's perfectly fine. But if you need to scale up fast and you want to increase revenue and so on, at some point, it's just not feasible anymore if you have 1,000 employees that you say, okay, let's fire 400 of them. That will not work. You will go bankrupt if you do that. So you need to find a way that you always have this minimum level of ownership, that you can still do what you need to do while embracing the fact that not everyone will get there where you want him to be and where ideally he should be if everything from Agile works perfectly fine. That, unfortunately, doesn't work. The next topic is metrics. That is probably the topic I was fighting with my Scrum Masters most about. Because when I came up with, I want to measure the team, I needed to hide in my office because they were hunting me down. But I am convinced that it's still an important topic, especially when you work with clients. And I also tell you why. The main fear that the Scrum Masters back then had were, if I measure the team in a way that, for example, I come to the conclusion, this one person is not performing, then I create fear in that team, like someone is looking at me, maybe someone is looking at the number of story points I deliver. So I'd rather deliver a story point than helping my colleague so that he can deliver his story point. And that is a dynamic that we don't want to have. So from their perspective, they were totally right. But that was not the goal of what we are trying to do back then. What we tried to do back then is finding arguments for our clients. Our clients were coming and say, I have a gut feeling that you're not delivering enough for the money we pay you. That's a gut feeling. How do you deal with that? And that were two of our biggest clients. So that is a serious thing and we need to deal with that. So we said, okay, we need to find a way how we somehow can show them that they're getting enough for their money, but also that we show them many things that they are doing, how they act, are really, really hurting the team and making them pay for more. As an example, we introduced the metric of team stability because we had a mixed team together with the client and the client was constantly changing people from one team to the other. And that, of course, is constantly disturbing the team. And we had metrics where we showed them, look, every time when we have a lot of changes in the teams, performance goes down. And that was our argument based on facts to the customer that we could say, stop doing that. Leave our teams alone. We know how to handle them. Stop interfering. That is one example where metrics really helped the team. So that was the main goal that we did, to protect the team, and that we could only do with facts. Because if the client has a gut feeling and you as a provider have a gut feeling, the client wins because he is paying the money. Next one, what we need is building a culture of adaptability. And this one, that is something I specifically want to mention because when you talk about agility and adapt, that usually means like, especially project managers like that, it's like we can do whatever we want. We don't need to plan. We change everything tomorrow and you need to deal with it. That is specifically not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is when you work together with clients, every environment with the client is different. And you need to find a way how to deal with those new environments, new culture from the client. If you have mixed team together with the client, you need to have some flexibility in the way of how you work. If you have a team and you say, that is my setup and I will not change it at all, and the client says, that doesn't work for me, what would you do? Not take the client? Again, if you are in that position that you can say no to clients, that's great. Not all companies can do that. Some companies still need those clients and say, okay, if we just are a bit more flexible without throwing everything overboard, of course. So again, here is a bit of a balance needed. Then you can actually win. And also here, I have an example in the case study later, or actually now, because that is our next topic. The first one, I on purpose removed the company name because I don't know which questions might follow later and I can talk a bit more freely about it when there is no customer name on the slides. But to give you some context about that, it's in the pharma industry. They're working with SAFe. They are, I would say, from agility point of view, more mature than the average client. We had mixed teams there. So the client together with Netconomy, mixed meaning different roles in each team, and every role could potentially be from one or the other company. The problem was, while we named our roles in the same way, we had a total different understanding of what each role should do, what are the responsibilities. For example, when we said, okay, we have a product owner, the product owner at Netconomy also took care of a few specification things like working together with the team to really identify technical needs and so on. The product owner on their side didn't do that at all. His job was to go to the team and say, I need to increase conversion rate, good luck, which is a very different way of working. So yes, you can do that if your teams are used to work with that. If your team has the skill to say, okay, I know how to boost a conversion rate, I know what to do, I know I have 2 months to do that, that works perfectly fine. But developers that we had in that setup were not used to working like that. They were used to have the PO who works together with them on the topics and to figure it out. And that is just one example. We had that for many, many roles, basically for all of them besides, no, not even developers, even there we had a difference. So how do we set up a collaboration in that way? In a way where you have changing teams, a customer that is also on the stock market. So also here, it was very unpredictable. If the stock price went down just a bit, the next day the customer said, okay, we need to shift priorities, we need a signal for the market, we need to remove 4 people from the team. That created an environment where the people mostly had then the question, okay, but should I even start that feature? Will I be in the team tomorrow? And if you have that energy in the team, they will hardly get anything done. So what did we do? We cannot change the client much, but we could convince him that we try out a few things the way Netconomy is working and just see with metrics and data if it works or not. Luckily, he agreed to that. So we did that. We agreed on that on a C-level, and they agreed to that. And with that, we could at least put some of our processes and way of working into that whole scenario. On the other hand, of course, we also needed to talk with our teams and help them to work with the specifics that the customer have, because we cannot just throw them in and say, figure it out. We needed to say, okay, we need specific trainings. We had on-site trainings, online trainings, and so on, that the team gets comfortable with this new mixed way of working. So that was in terms of collaboration. Another thing was this constant uncertainty. And here, we don't have much capability to influence the stock market. So what we needed to do here is transparency, open communication. Every time we knew something or we thought that rumors might come, we defined a communication strategy towards the team. And that is a very tricky thing, because if there are rumors, you share them and they turn out not to be true, you still create it, even if you mention it's just rumors, like don't act on it, that will never work. People will act on rumors. People will get nervous. So if you tell them and it's not happening, then you created a disturbance in the team for no reason. If you hide the rumors from them and then they turn out to be true, then the team comes and said, you knew it and you didn't tell us. So you lied to us. So also here, very tricky. So we sat together with some of our roles that we have, Scrum Masters, also our internal product owners, and we said, okay, every time we had some rumors, we carefully picked how to share that in a way that the team has the feeling, okay, I really have the full transparency without making them nervous if we thought there is a very low chance that actually something like that happens. And we set up frequent meetings with the team. And we got the feedback from the team that if someone from higher strategic management is there every second week, and in very hard times, we even had it once a week, they really appreciated that. They just wanted to be in here if there is anything new, ask some questions. Some people even ask the exact same question every week, and that was perfectly fine. But just having that, the team got more calm, and I think that was a big factor in the success. We went live a couple of days with a huge platform, so it definitely paid off, and the way of working now is much, much better than it was, let's say, half a year or a year ago. The other example is a company working in the event industry. So they're selling luxury experiences for sport events. Like there was some, if you followed the news, some football sport event a couple of days ago, you might heard of it. Also there, they sold some experiences, very, very nice. So the problem there, or the challenge there, is that this is a very, very fast-moving environment. You have an event. When the event is done, you need to do something else. Maybe you have 5 events in parallel. And because of that, and also the, let's say, stability of those events and the negotiations are very, very tricky. Just to explain, you're bidding for an event that you get the license, and you actually need to prepare for it, because it could be that a couple of weeks before the event, they tell you, you got it, and then you need to be ready with your platform. You can't start the day when they say, yeah, you got it, because then you will be too late. And because of that, of course, there is a lot of change. And because of that and the complexity, we had a lot of different domains working together, from quality perspective, from consulting perspective. Like everyone was involved because everyone could contribute, which is a good thing. But that, of course, also requires a lot of alignment and organization. And we saw that the team really, really struggled to do that. The team struggled to bring everyone on one table and really go out with one common opinion or agreement. And we came to the point where even the most senior developers and teams that we had stopped making any decision because they were just afraid that it might be the wrong decision. They go into a wrong way and then they need to start over again. And you have a client that will then probably tell you, you made a wrong decision, we will not pay you. That was a really, really tricky topic. Even though they exactly knew, I was coming to the team and say, okay, I will help you come to a decision. Give me all the options you have. And the developers told me there is exactly one. So everyone in that team know that there is exactly one option, one way to go, but still they didn't take the decision to do the obvious one. And that was one part where I said, okay, explain me the solution so that I also can somehow understand it. I will go to the customer and explain him why we do it that way. Don't wait for my answer, just do it. Because I will be the one standing in front of the customer. I will be the one explaining why we do it, and I will say we did it. So no one will come to you as a team and say, you went into the wrong direction. And that suddenly unblocked the team again, and they were delivering the obvious but very, very good result. In the end, no one from customer side complained, and even if they did, I told the team, even if the customer comes and says, I have a second option that no one of us thought about, even then, at least we built something and we learned something, and we might be faster than when we built the solution that the customer now told us. Even then, we would have a benefit. And that gave the team also this confidence, okay, what we are doing now, we don't need to throw away completely. At least we learn something, and it's okay if we need to throw it away. And also here, we went live. We built an app for this tiny football event that we had recently. And it was very successful. We got a lot of good feedback, and that was thanks to this amazing team that worked on that, and we could support them to reach their goal. Now we're coming to the closing. Still no book, so maybe I make it to the end. Let's see. So what I want to tell you, what is the whole thing of today's presentation, is that we need to tailor the agility to your reality that you have. And that can mean many, many things. For me, it means that Agile is something that works in general, but you cannot just follow a guideline or a rule book. You need to exactly do what works for you and use the things that work for you, adapt things if you need to adapt it, and also ignore some things if you say, okay, that just doesn't work for me, for my environment. We also need to embrace that not everyone is a rock star. We just need to live with that. As much as we want it, in bigger companies especially, it will not happen. Sometimes people get hired without us having any influence on that, but we still need to do our job and find a way to make the best out of that. So there can be many, many reasons why we need to deal with people, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. That is also showing strength in leadership if we can deal with that. And I mean leadership internal and external, because it's also not easy for a team if there are 5 people who take ownership and are great and the 6th one doesn't care. That's not an easy situation for a team. And also the team needs to make sure that either they convince the 6th guy to work their way and not the other way around, because that can also happen, and that is a dangerous one. So this is important that we know that this happens, but we need to learn how to deal with it. And last, leadership in agile environments is something that requires a different set of skills than I would say the traditional command and control leader that we have, or the micromanagement leader that we have. In the very beginning of one of my projects, I thought, okay, the team is struggling. So what will I do? I will go to the team, micromanage it, and tell every single person what they should do. That is an amazing short-term solution that will mess up everything you will do afterwards. So if you plan to resign after 1 month, go for it. That will work. If you plan to be successful longer with that team, it won't. Because what I created was a team that was on an average level of taking responsibility and ownership. I took that away from them because I was making all decisions for them. And then I was like, okay, escalation mode done. Now go back to your work as before. No one did that. everyone was waiting for me to come from the outside and tell them, and they told me, but you always did that. And it was a very comfortable situation. They were just sitting, okay, in the morning, he's coming, he tells me what to do, I do it, I go home, I don't care. I created exactly that environment. So I know from firsthand experience that that might not be the best thing to do. I learned from it. One more thing. Everything that you heard today is from books that I read, conferences I attended, knowledge I gained from colleagues, statistics I read, but the vast majority is my personal experience, what worked and what not. And you might experience something very different, and that's perfectly fine. The main goal for today is not that you take everything that you heard and say, okay, now that's the truth for everything, and I will incorporate it immediately. What I want to do here is that you maybe start rethinking a few things. Maybe you can take a few things and just say, okay, can I adapt a small thing? And if there was one topic that triggered you especially, one topic where you said, now I hate him, look into that topic. For me, that was back then the ownership topic, when I heard multiple times, all the teams take ownership and just let them do. And for me, it never worked. Sometimes it was my fault. Sometimes it was not my fault. And I came to the conclusion it just doesn't work and we can't do anything about it. But the reality is there are always a lot of reasons for it. And while you maybe cannot solve it 100%, there are still things you can do to make it better. And it took me quite some time to accept that. But now I think I learned a lot from that. So if you had a topic today where you say that really triggered me, look into that one. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
I will start with the first one here, which actually wraps up everything perfectly you just said at the end. Thank you. And it's actually, what are you doing in order to help people develop ownership in an agile team?
Many things, actually. First, and that is something that you can probably only partially influence, depending on the role that you have, is you need to create an environment where people feel safe to take ownership. That's, I know that's like throwing out some words and doing this bullshit bingo, but it still is true at the end of the day. If people are scared and always get punished when they make some decision or something goes wrong, then it will not work. But I also accept that this is something that not every one of us in the companies that we're working in can influence. Yeah, if there is a toxic environment and you're this one person with your team, what can you do? You can try to improve it, but you will maybe not succeed. What worked for me always is that I explain them and show them that I fully trust them. So I sit together with them, and when I see that they're struggling, I tell them, you are the expert. And I will support it. I will challenge it. That is something I need to do, because if I defend whatever we are deciding now in front of the client, I need to understand what we're doing and why we're doing. But I want you as a team decide what we're doing. And that will not work if you do it once, but if you continuously do it and the team sees that they have the backing up and that it's actually fun making their own decisions. And then latest when the product goes live and they know our decisions made that product as it is today, that worked best for me.
Perfect, thank you. Then the next one is actually something on the motivation of working 9 to 5. So why do you think someone wants to work 9 to 5? Wouldn't you say it's a matter of motivation, what team it's working on?
So first, the phrase working 9 to 5. I mean, of course, there is nothing wrong in general with working 9 to 5 if those are your preferred hours. But it is still a term when it comes to seeing a sign of motivation. I'm giving you an example. I had a very, very experienced developer, and he was, before home office was very, very popular, he was working from home. He was that good. He had the output of 2 other teams, and he was a single person. So he was really the mastermind. And because of that, he could do basically whatever he wanted. And then one day I came to the office and I saw him at the office. I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, something where I contributed is not working. I worked together with this team and I want to make sure that it gets fixed, and that is best if I'm here. So that shows such a motivation and taking responsibility for what they want, that you could immediately see, okay, he's into the topic and he wants to get things done. And that is the main thing where I say that shows motivation. Of course, not the time if you work from 9 to 5 or something else. So that is the main topic. I hope I answered that question. If not, I think you can
I
put
guess
another one.
we can do it afterwards as well in case you didn't
Yeah,
answer it. Yeah. So the next one is related to your case study for the small event you had for regarding ownership. Why would you want to be an owner or own a product when it's a short-lasting product and it's only up for 1 month? Why should you take ownership for that?
That is indeed true. That is a very, very difficult topic. When we talk about ownership, usually that comes when teams are stable working together on a product that is there for years, and then like that's your baby, that's your product. And if you know upfront the product will be thrown away, ownership for exactly that part is very, very hard. But what you can establish, and that is not an easy thing to do, is the ownership for the whole journey. Because creating a product and throwing it away has a purpose. It can have the purpose that it is a POC, and then you learned a lot and you work afterwards, you would still throw it away. It can be that it's just to get a competitive advantage and then work like on the real product you want to launch, but still you want something. And you need to manage that those people, those teams you have feel connected and own the journey. And if you have a product like that, I agree, for a 1 month product, no one will see that as his or her baby.
Perfect. I will rephrase the next one actually a little bit. So maybe the reasons no one was throwing books at you is because they were not able to grasp which Agile methodology book they should throw at you, because they didn't know which one you're referring to, which was not working. So could you elaborate what you tried, what didn't work, what worked best for you?
I also think that maybe at the entrance they took away the books from all the people, so maybe there is some safety policy there. But yeah, so there were a couple ones, and I'm now taking also a few comments from previous Agile coaches and so on I'm working with. So one Agile principle, of course, is this whole ownership topic. Yeah, and I'm not talking about the documents and working software and so on, because yeah, we know all of that. So those principles, yeah, basically you say everything is important, something is a bit more important than the other. That is not really helping us in our day-to-day work there. But agility, and especially Agile books, say the team is responsible, the team makes their own decision, and from the outside you just need to give them a business problem, and the team will know best how to solve that business problem. And that is not true in all cases. And that is not necessarily the fault of the team. That can just be because the team doesn't have all the information, because the environments get so complex that they have no possibility to know what is the best way to solve that business problem. For example, when we go back to the example we had before with this 1 month product, the team could say, okay, the client has a business requirement. We built an amazing product. But what the client actually needs is something that he can throw away after 1 month to achieve something very, very specific on the market. And that information is very, very hard to get. That might be an easy example, but in today's environment, it gets harder and harder to do that. The next one is this whole planning topic. We hear that, so agility is without planning, and we know that is not true. But I also saw that teams who try to plan something that is attached to a certain uncertainty really, really struggle with that. So when a client tells you, like, I want to, that is my vision, I want to build something like that, and you still need to have a plan, especially working with a client, because maybe they prepared some marketing campaign, and when you release a feature, they want to do that. So they need to know that a couple of months in advance. That kind of planning is very, very hard for teams. There are some who can do it, especially if they have a amazing experienced product owner. This person usually can do it in most cases. But the team as a whole, the average team I was working with, had huge problems with the planning topic.
Perfect. So next one is more related to the individual level people development. So what are you doing to help people in order to get up and improve on their individual level?
So we in the company, in the teams, we work with Scrum Masters that help and coach people. We also have Agile coaches that do the same thing for multiple teams on a different level. We, by the way, also do that with customers if they let us. So we also try to coach and support our customers and developers from customers, but also customers as an organization. We have from a technical point of view, we have also dedicated people to help people how to draft certain solutions and also give them this spirit like it is okay if your first solution is not the perfect one, as long as we learn something from that and adapt something. And my personal role in the development is, as one coach once told me, is stretching the people outside of their comfort zone without leaving them alone out there. Because if you just push people out of the comfort zone, they will not learn. They will just die there. If you leave them in the comfort zone, they will not grow. So you carefully need to take them by the hand and step a bit out of their comfort zone. And this is what I'm trying to do with the teams that lost the ability to make their own decisions. That I say, look, you're in charge now. You're deciding that. I will back you up. If everything is in flames, I will go to the customer and say, we will manage it, but you will make the decision now. And those kind of things help people a lot if they accept those kind of coaching and help. That is, of course, also a prerequisite.
Perfect. Thanks for that answer. Actually, to extend this question a little bit, you mentioned that the role also of the Scrum Master is to help them on the individual level. You did already a lot of team effort within as a leadership position. What's the role other than mentoring the team of the Scrum Master themselves?
So our Scrum Masters try to increase the performance of the team, remove impediments. Also, that could be a sentence from a book. What does that actually mean? So when it comes to impediments, the Scrum Masters in our company are usually the ones who are very, very strong when it comes to communicating. And the team can very much benefit from that. If you have a team where many people are introvert, they might have a hard time raising their hand and saying, okay, that could be an issue. The Scrum Master is helping them with that and asking the people in one-on-ones. They have a trust towards the Scrum Master, and then the Scrum Master can raise the topics. Could be that we need to change something on client side, in the team, or whatever. We need external help from somewhere. The Scrum Master is doing that in terms of impediments. In terms of performance, the Scrum Master is now working with a few KPIs, not with all. I did not win that battle yet, but I'm trying. I'm trying to force that at some point. But some of them are used. And with those, we can then also measure. And what is a great evolution that we now had is that the Scrum Masters sometimes use those metrics against me. I very much like that. When I say I have a feeling that something is not working and they come with numbers and say, you're wrong, everything is fine. So that is a development I very much appreciate.
Perfect. So the next one is, so there was something thrown away. You talked about different people within the team, that they are not always just high performers, but also people, especially when you come to a certain size, which are just there to work. So how do you combine those different profiles in an agile team? So how can you achieve a good balance between optimal performance and also having a good flow and a healthy work environment?
That's a very good one, because that is something that I assume many, many companies struggle with that. The challenge when you are a service provider, you're driven by projects, you're driven by your sales, and you cannot predict when the next customer will be at your door and say, okay, I need 2 teams to develop whatever. So if that happens, you need to see which person is available. So we are not working with fixed teams that always stay together and we throw the team at the customer. For us, it's like the customer is coming, the customer has a certain problem. We need to find the skills that match that and say, okay, this is the group. But this is a good working group when you just look at the skill set, not when you look at personality, team performance in general, and so on. And that is something that is still, until today, a big challenge for us. What we're doing to, I would say, improve the situation, what we did is a lot of education, a lot of coaching for our people. And what we also do, if we really see that something is not working, we also need to rotate people there to come to exactly that point where it works. And this is something that we measure. We need metrics there. And of course, also you need to listen very, very closely to the teams. And in order to tell you, you need to have a certain trust environment that the teams actually will tell you what's not wrong without starting this blaming culture. So this is something that we're still working on today. We came a long way, but we're not where we want to be yet. It's improved, but still room.
So there are just a few late upvotes, so there's another one. So what's actually good about Agile, or what's also one of the highlights, is it shows you quite well what the dysfunctions of a team or organization are. Could you actually detect with your current process the dysfunctions you have or observe in your team, and which actions can you actually take in order to solve them?
Yeah, so we are in the meantime pretty good in highlighting and seeing if a team is dysfunctional. We have multiple checks in place that tell us on an automatic base without measuring individual performance if something is working or not in the teams. A few of them are regular health checkups that we have with the team, where we want the team to give a certain statement on how they feel that the project progress is going. There are certain KPIs that we have a look, and the team also needs to tell like the KPIs, I like that and why. And in those meetings, you get a feeling of who is contributing, what the team is doing, and is the team actually knowing really what's going on also on client side with their project. And in those meetings, you can also sense, is there this sense of urgency? When you have a team and you are 2 weeks before the go live and you know that you're by far not done, and the team is sitting in that meeting and says everything is fine, you know that you have a problem. Because if all the numbers say it's clearly not fine and the team is presenting you those numbers without any emotion, you know that they either don't care about the numbers, don't understand the numbers, or don't have the sense of urgency. So with all the checkups that we have in place, I think we're pretty good in figuring out what's wrong.
Okay, maybe to come back to the previous question we had regarding the Agile methodologies you used. So there is actually a feeling that you just tried different principles of Agile and put it together in a random process, and that didn't work. So did you also try something by the book and then came back and said, yes, it doesn't work for us?
Yes, actually a lot. We basically ran the book from start to end and back. And during that process, we figured out that many things are not working. I remember in the very beginning, we had also to educate me, we had a meeting like which role should do what in the setup. And I remember exactly the question, who decides what is priority 1 in the backlog? And I had a completely different answer than my team. Everyone from my team put product owner, which was me. But I said, it's the client. And that was something that we fundamentally needed to change, because I can put whatever I want at top priority. But if we have a contract where the client needs to say, I approve every single thing you work on, then it's the client who decides what will be the next thing in the backlog. And I'm just the person who can do this shift in Jira and say, it's now that. And those were things that I and also our team back then needed to learn that this, what we learned there with especially with the responsibilities, with who does what, needed to change. That also is a problem when you have those kind of rules and you say, okay, basically you need the customer to tell you what's okay to work on and what not. And then you have a customer that goes on vacation for 3 weeks and your team says we're running out of work. That's an issue, because if I give the team some work where I think it's useful, the client comes back and says, I have a different opinion, I will not pay you. Then the CEO will come to me and say, you didn't do your job. If I say, sorry, team, I can't do anything, then the team will say, we also can't do anything. Then we're all sitting around and the CEO will come to me and say, you didn't do your job. So we had many of those examples where we needed to adapt the things we wanted to do. The same is with the whole Scrum process and the reviews. Some things are just difficult to implement. If you have, let's say, the Scrum ceremonies with the review, the sprint planning, sometimes we had a second sprint planning for more technical things. And then you had 2 people in the team who worked part-time. So they joined all the meetings and then they were gone. How do you deal with that? You also need to find a solution with that. That's why we also needed to adapt the Scrum ceremonies, that also those people can contribute. And those were things, so we had the process by the book. Of course, it evolved over time. There were some changes. The main drivers for that, of course, came from the Scrum Master that saw those issues and said, okay, let's try something else. Let's try something else. And then we went from Scrum to Kanban at some point because we thought maybe that works better. Yeah, mostly same issues.
So you
different
tried
name.
different processes already throughout, and they all didn't fit your purpose of fulfilling the client's needs.
And the thing is, I think in the basic Scrum book, the process is really tailored to I create my own product internally. I am the product owner. I get a budget. And that is something that doesn't work. There are a few exceptions to that. But in main conferences where I talk to people, they just say, apply the same principles. And you cannot do that. Not all of them, some work.
Perfect. So let's get a few more questions, and I guess we are already good in time. So can you share some of the most useful KPIs from your opinion, which you have introduced in the company?
Yes. One is the team stability. That is one that really helped us a lot with a lot of clients to actually show them the impact. So we mapped the team stability with some effort and performance, so basic velocity KPIs, and just show them that there is a decrease. Velocity is always a very, very tricky thing. How do you measure that story point wise and so on? But once if you defined it, you still can have some trend in that. So that was one that is very good. The second one is also, that is probably something that is a bit Netconomy specific. We make a difference if we find a bug or the customer finds a bug. Because we have some contracts that say, if our quality process finds the bug, we get paid for it if we fix it. If we deploy it and on a staging system and the customer finds it, we don't get paid for it. So of course we have a natural interest to find as much as possible. And this ratio between how much do we find and how much does the customer find is an important KPI for us to see how good is our quality process. So that is, of course, not relevant in all the companies, but for us that is very, very good. Of course, there are financial KPIs that are very important for us. The most important one is time that we invested into a project versus time we get paid for. So that's, I think, for a service provider, maybe the most important one. Also for consultants, that is a very, very good one. And one more, I'm not sure how Netconomy specific that is, but maybe it is. When we have very, very big projects, we sometimes need some additional capacity for building an architecture, for specification of certain things that just cannot done by the team, because you need a very, very specific expertise and they need to prepare something for the team and then hand it over to the team. And this pre-work, like how long does it take for the start of this pre-work until the team can actually work with that? That is an important indicator because we then know, okay, if a topic like that is coming, we know that we need to prepare the team because it will hit the team in 2 months, for example. And then do we have the knowledge in the team to actually take over that topic that we provided? Or does the team not have enough work and maybe we need to speed up the process before that? And if we know it's 2 months, but the team runs out of work in 1 month, we know that we have an issue. So that, I would say those are, is my favorite KPIs that we have. We have a lot.
Perfect. The next one, I guess it's more of a comment than a question itself. So everyone gets that self-organizing needs actually leadership. And it's lysosphere, that's actually good wording for it, but it needs some guidance. So I guess that's a quite good comment as well.
So I would not agree that everyone says that self-organization needs leadership, because I had multiple talks where I was told that is not the case. So I would not agree to that, but I personally agree that this needs leadership and it needs to be done in a very good way. So there, I'm all for it. So we just need to do it in the right way, and you need to have a specific skill set to do that, and then it will work.
So I guess we still have 18 more questions. That's quite a lot. Just pick your top 3. I will just read 3 more, and then we go to the mingling part. So the first one is already given. So isn't Agile actually pragmatic by definition?
I would say depends who you ask. If you ask me, yes, that's why I had this talk today, and that's how it should be. But throughout my career, I had many coaches, speakers who had a very, very different opinion, who basically told me, Agile by the book is perfect as it is. It's just the human that's wrong, which is an interesting view. And you can say, yes, but we still need to work with those people. So if all of them are wrong, then the question is if the theory is actually that good. So I agree. I think it is pragmatic, but I know that there are other opinions as well.
Perfect. You also mentioned in your talk about external and internal leadership.
Yeah.
How would you define external leadership for your company?
For me, external leadership is my role. I'm not working directly with the teams. I'm not a part of the team. I'm not attending any meetings of, let's say, the Scrum ceremony. I'm also not, unfortunately, attending the go-live dinners and all the parties they have. But my connection with the team is usually like we have, when everything is fine, we have a touch point like once a month. And within this once a month, I want to give the team the vision of the client that we're working for and some strategic guidance. And then I leave them alone, and basically they can do with that whatever they think is best, but without interfering in any way, usually in the team. I only interfere if either the team asks me to and says, we need your support, or if I sense from the outside that something is not working and I need to get a bit closer to the team and help them. But in a regular case, I'm not part of any team. And internal would be like every person in the team can and should have certain leadership tasks. That is the internal part.
Perfect. So now let's come to the last question. Yeah, it's already the third one after my announcement. Would you say that those problems are mainly because of service provided organizations? Do you really think that product companies don't struggle with issues?
I would say in a different way. While many of the issues I presented are for sure true for all the words, but I think as a service provider, you have an additional fact of complexity with the client. Now you can say, okay, as a product company, I have my internal clients, which is true, but your internal clients can be, or let's say, they are still all under the same roof. And if the CEO decides something, you still, in theory, should all go in the same direction. If the CEO of Netconomy decides something, our clients will not follow that. And that is a fundamental difference. And you also have usually a very different culture and hopefully the same amazing good culture within your company and your product, but not if you work with a client. So yes, many of the things are true for all worlds, but I think service providers have this additional complexity with the client that you have absolutely no control over, or limited coaching works.
Perfect. So that actually concludes the questions and answers. I know there are already still a lot of questions there, so you have the chance to connect afterwards, remote and on-site as well. So I will hand over to Nico to get some closing words from our side.
Sure. So once again, thanks.